The 2021 MLB season is here, and although the seats may not be full, your bankroll has the chance to be. Greg Hoops Peterson has you covered for every game, every day this season, along with comprehensive analysis and angles for getting to the window while celebrating the walk-off winners and blown saves of what will be a wild season. Now it is time for the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson.
A warm and friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. We've got a great podcast for you. It's in the second segment. We are going to be joined by Danny Vietti. He does a terrific job over there at CBS Sports and the Wake Rake Podcast, which you're able to find wherever you get this fine podcast. We're going to be talking about the absolute calamity and demise that is the San Diego Padres at this point. Going to be taking a look at these postseason races. We're also going to be just taking a look at how the St. Louis Cardinals are doing what they're doing as well, and a little bit of good news that is on the horizon for the St. Louis Cardinals as well. So we're going to have a great chat in the second segment. Then in the final segment, going to give you guys sign total on every game on the betting board for this Thursday, and a little something you like to call touch them all. First things first, always love to be able to answer Twitter questions on this podcast. We've got one or two ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters M, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not wind up getting in any Twitter questions today, but with that said, we wound up having a tremendous day of baseball on Wednesday, so let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The St. Louis Cardinals have now won 11 straight games, ladies and gentlemen. 10-2, they take down the Milwaukee Brewers as Paul Goldschmidt and Tyler O'Neill hit home runs in this one. O'Neill, 29th home run season. Paul Goldschmidt goes deep for his 27th home run season. Miles Michaelis delivers a great start, giving up 2 runs in 7 innings, and then Justin and Adam Miller both give you scoreless innings as for the Milwaukee Brewers. Avisail Garcia got his 29th home run season, and the Brewers all of a sudden have been sleepwalking a little bit. They have lost 3 straight games to the St. Louis Cardinals. They have now lost 4 games overall, and they've also lost, I believe, now 5 out of their last 7. And for the Brewers, Brett Anderson got destroyed in this one. He gives up only 2 earned runs, but 6 runs in total. Luis Urias commits his 24th error of the season, and Eduardo Escobar committed an error behind him as he wind up having 2 2/3 innings out of Jendel Gustave, gives up an unearned run in the process. Daniel Norris gives up a run in 2 2/3 innings under Strickland, gives up 2 runs in an inning, and then Jace Peterson comes in to pitch. He wound up delivering a scoreless one, but certainly a rough one out there for the Milwaukee Brewers. Not a rough one for the Tampa Bay Rays, though. They take it to the Toronto Blue Jays by a count of 7-1. Julian Merriweather is used as the opener, gives you a scoreless inning, and then Ross Stripling gives up 5 runs and gets 4 outs. Taylor Saucedo from there, he winds up giving up 2 runs in 4 outs. Anthony Castro was able to give you 2 1/3 innings scoreless. Ryan Barucki, Nate Pearson both give you a scoreless inning. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, really nothing doing for this team on offense. As for the Tampa Bay Rays, Luis Patino, 3 scoreless innings, and then bullpen takes over from there. JT Chargois, Pete Fairbanks, David Robertson, I'll give you a scoreless inning. JP Fireeisen gives you 1 1/3 scoreless. Adam Conley gives up a run. It is 1 2/3 innings, but Austin Meadows able to get his 26th home run season. Now has 103 RBI under the radar as well, so he's been able to do a heck of a job. It looked like it might be a disaster for the Philadelphia Phillies, but they got just enough offense to get it done. 4-3 the final for the Philadelphia Phillies. This is a team that they have not been scoring a lot as. This is a bunch that they have now put up 5 runs or fewer, and now each out of their last 6 games, 4 runs or fewer in 5 of them. For the Orioles, they wind up going just 2 of 10 with men in scoring position, and for Keegan Aiken, probably his best start of the year. He gives up 1 run in 5 1/3 innings. But then from there, Connor Green gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Eric Handel gives you a pair of outs. He gives up a run in the process. And then Fernando Abadi was not a bad in this one, giving you a scoreless inning. Brooks Kriske gives you an out of the bullpen. And then for the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Wheelan and Dylan Wheeler was Wheelan and Dylan, gives up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. Sam Coonrod gives up an out while getting 2 outs out of the bullpen. Jose Alvarado got the final out of the 7th inning. Ian Kennedy, a scoreless inning to be able to get a save. And Cam Bedrosian gives up a run in an inning as the big hit in this one. Andrew McCutchen, 25th home run season, big for the Philadelphia Phillies and their playoff hopes. The New York Yankees were able to explode late to be able to help out their playoff hopes with a 4 spot in the 8th inning, powering them past the Texas Rangers. 7-3 the final for the Rangers. 3 runs or fewer in 8 straight games. This offense has been absolutely terrible, as you wound up having Taylor Hearn give you a not-so-bad start, giving up 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings, but then Spencer Patton, who has actually been pretty reliable for the Rangers, gives up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Jarrell Cotton gives you an out of the bullpen. Danny Santana, pair of outs, and Josh Shorbridge, a scoreless inning. But for the New York Yankees, being able to go deep in this one, Gary Sanchez, his second of the series, 23rd home run season for Corey Kluber. Not a great start. 4 1/3 innings, giving up 3 runs, but the bullpen was on point. Chad Green, Aroldis Chapman, Clay Holmes, all give you a scoreless inning. And then Wandy Peralta, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. The Chicago Cubs, well, they were not able to hold the Minnesota Twins scoreless in this one, especially early, 5-4. They wound up taking the L, as Joe Ryan was able to give you a solid start. 11 strikeouts in 5 innings, giving up 2 runs in the process. Wambanaya, Ty Duffy, Ode Alcala, Alex Colome, all give you a scoreless inning. And for the Minnesota Twins, Max Kepler, welcome to the show. 18th and 19th home runs of the season. That comes off of Kyle Hendricks. And for Kyle Hendricks, this man has been giving up bombs all season long, as he has now allowed 33 of them, as he goes 5 2/3 innings, giving up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. He was hurt by an error by Matt Duffy. And then from there, Adam Morgan gives you an out of the bullpen. Adbert Alzolay, Rowan Wick both give you a scoreless inning. And then Cody Hoyer winds up giving up a run in his inning of work. And for the Chicago Cubs, 3 of 9 with men in scoring position, but wind was blowing in, and they were unable to supply the deep ball. The LA Dodgers wind up taking a loss to the Colorado Rockies, which hurts them in the NL West race. Hard to believe that a team at 97-55, currently not leading their division, but the Rockies get the job done 10-5 the final. This was just the second time since the start of the 2018 campaign in which Odomar Marquez was at least a plus 145 underdog at home, and both of them resulted in wins for the Colorado Rockies, as the other one was opening day of the season. Now, wasn't necessarily thanks to him. He gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, but Robert Stevenson, Jordan Sheffield, Lucas Gilbreth, Daniel Bard, Tyler Kinley all give you a scoreless inning. And for the Colorado Rockies, they were able to get to Walker Buehler. Brendan Rodgers goes deep off of Buehler, his 15th home run season. Then Alex Vesia would give up a home run to Sam Hilliard, his 12th home run season. This was just the 3rd time all year Walker Buehler failed to complete 6 innings, giving up 5 runs over the course of 3 2/3 innings, including one of those homers. Justin Brule gives up a run in his 3rd of an inning. Bersuda Gratterall, Corey Knebel were both able to give you a scoreless inning, and then Evan Phillips, 1 1/3 inning scoreless, but Alex Vesia, 4 unearned runs, as he was hurt by an error of his own. So technically, he wound up giving up 4 runs, but I mean, that's a discussion for another day. But good news is, Luke Raley, in for the injured Cody Bellinger, was able to get a 2nd home run in the campaign, but certainly a good win for a Colorado Rockies team that has the 3rd best win percentage among National League teams. The Seattle Mariners, all of a sudden, find themselves just a few games out of the wild card thanks to their 3rd straight win over the Oakland A's. A's 3.5 games back of that 2nd wild card spot in the American League. The Mariners are 2.5 games back. 4-1, they take down the Oakland A's as Chris Flexen, for the 8th time in his last 9 starts, 3 runs or fewer given up on the road. He winds up giving up a solo home run over the course of 7 innings. Matt Chapman was able to supply that 27th home run season. And for Cole Irvin, he allows 3+ runs for, I believe, now the 9th time in his last 13 starts, giving up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a pair of bombs going deep for the Seattle Mariners. Kyle Seager for his 35th home run season, and Ty France, not a tie, but a win for France. 17th home run season. Diego Castillo drew his 2nd rider. Both give you a scoreless inning for the Seattle Mariners. And then Diolis Carrera gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings for the A's. He wind up having Michael Felice, Andrew Chafin combined for a scoreless inning. He has Beto Petit, a pair of outs out of the bullpen. And then a scoreless inning from Domingo Acevedo. But certainly the Seattle Mariners getting the job done when it matters most. The Atlanta Braves got the job done as well. They take down the Arizona Diamondbacks by a count of 9-2. For the Atlanta Braves, you wind up having a trio of guys get either home run number 30 or 31. Ozzie Albies, 30th home run of the season. Austin Riley, Freddie Freeman both get their 31st, as this was not a good night for Merrill Kelly. He gives up 2 of those bombs, gives up 6 runs in total over the course of 6 innings. Tyler Clipper, the ancient one, gives up 3 runs over the course of his innings. Caleb Smith winds up giving you 2 scoreless innings, and for Christian Walker, he was able to get his 9th home run in the campaign. That comes in the 8th inning off of Chris Martinez. He winds up giving up that run in 2/3 of an inning, but Ian Anderson, very good start for the Atlanta Braves, giving up 1 run over the course of 7 innings. Luke Jackson gives you an out of the bullpen, and Sean Newcomb completes the 9th. So the Atlanta Braves certainly rocking and rolling. Speaking of teams out there in the National League East, The Miami Marlins, they got rocked and rolled by the Washington Nationals. 7-5 the final for the Nats. Juan Soto gets his 27th home run of the season. Yadiel Hernandez his 9th home run of the season. And Luis Garcia his 6th, as Josiah Gray, after giving up 5+ runs in 4 straight starts, he looked a little bit more like the old Josiah Gray, in which wound up giving up 3 runs or fewer in his first 6 starts with the Washington Nationals. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. From there, Austin Voth, Patrick Murphy both give you a scoreless inning. Now, Ryan Harper gives up a pair of homers and 3 runs in total while getting just 1 out, but Tanner Rainey was able to clean up the final 2 outs of this one. As for the Miami Marlins going deep, Sandy Leon, his 4th home run season, and then you wind up getting the 3rd home run in, I believe, something like the last 7 days for Mr. Fortes, as Nick Fortes was able to go deep in this one. And for the Miami Marlins, Eliezer Hernandez got destroyed. 3 home runs given up over the course of 4 innings, and for Hernandez, he's now given up 12 home runs in 46 2/3 innings. Being that your home ballpark is Miami, that's not great. See what occurred? 2 scoreless innings. You wind up getting a pair of scoreless innings out of Luis Madero as well, but Zach Thompson gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning. Sean Gunther was able to give you a pair of outs as well. You wind up having a game go to the 12th inning between the Houston Astros and the LA Angels. I'm going to get to that in a second, see if we can get a final there. But for the Boston Red Sox, they completely clobber the New York Mets by a count of 12-5. For the Mets, Taijuan Walker, his demise has really caused the Mets to free fall. He gets 6 outs, he gives up 6 runs, all of which were earned, including a pair of homers. Trevor Williams from there, he comes in, he gives up 6 runs, 4 of which were earned over the course of his 4 innings, hurt by a pair of errors by Javi Baez along Jonathan Villar, Jurisic Familia, Brad Hand, both give you a scoreless inning. And then for the Boston Red Sox, Kyle Schwarber goes deep twice off of Taijuan Walker, 30th and 31st home run of the season. For Chris Sale, he gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. He's been doing a lot of this for the Boston Red Sox. Just give you 5 or 6 innings, give up 2 runs in the process. Another solid start there. Matt Barnes gives up a run in a third of an inning. Brian Brazier was able to give you a pair of outs. You wind up having Martin Perez along with Adam Ottavino both give up a run in an inning apiece, and then Josh Shaler gives you a scoreless inning. But for the Boston Red Sox, they now have been able to put the clamps down on a wild card spot. They are now 2 games clear of the New York Yankees for that first wild card spot, so they're in very good position. As I'm doing this podcast, we just are not going to be able to give you a final here. The Astros and the Angels tied 5-5 in the 12th inning. We have seen no runs scored in extra, so it's not going to be a bad beat on the total or anything like that, but certainly an intriguing one, as Luis Garcia winds up giving you 6 scoreless innings, and then Phil Maton lit this game on fire for the Houston Astros. He gives up 5 runs, all of which were earned, and got 1 out. Kendall Graveman gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Brooks Raley, Ryan Presley both give you a pair of scoreless innings. Blake Taylor, Yimi Garcia have combined for 2 scoreless innings, and for this Astros team, you wind up having Yordan Alvarez get his 32nd home run of the season. That comes off of Jansen Junk, and Junk got taken out by Jason Castro, his 5th home run of the season, as Mr. Jansen Junk gives up both of those home runs. 4 innings in total, giving up 3 runs. From there, Mike Myers, Jose Quijada, Jimmy Ergoat, Rocio Iglesias have all given you scoreless innings. Steve Cishek gives up 2 runs in his inning, but Andrew Wantz has given you 2 scoreless innings. And now it's up to Sam Selman as I do this podcast. And for the Angels, they're currently 3 of 13 with men in scoring position. This game is yet to go final, but it's about to. The San Francisco Giants enter into the 9th inning, up by a count of 8-4 to the poopy San Diego Padres. And have no fear, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Padres in the next segment with our good buddy Danny Vietti, as Scott Kazmir was able to go 4 innings. They gave up 1 unearned run. The fact that the Padres couldn't hit them means that this team probably should not be in the postseason. As of right now, the Giants are 7-14 with men in scoring position. No home runs, but doing a great job of playing small ball tonight, as Camilo Udoval was able to give you a scoreless inning out of the bullpen. Now, you did wind up having 3 runs, including a homer given up by Jarlin Garcia, a 1 and a third inning, but Dominique Leon gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Tony Watson was able to complete a scoreless inning as well. And then for the San Diego Padres, Vince Velasquez did not lend the length that they were looking for. Gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in an inning. That is not great. Ryan Weathers from there, 3 scoreless innings. Ross Detweiler along with Denelson Lamet both give you a scoreless inning. And then Nabel Christmas winds up giving up 3 runs and 1 and a third inning. And you wind up having 2 runs and 2 outs given up by Javi Guerra. The fact that we've got Javi Guerra going to the mound is not great. Good news for the Padres is Fernando Tatis Jr. able to get his 40th home run of the season. So with a couple games pending over the last 7 days, we have seen a good amount of favorites be able to come through. 58.1% hit rate for favorites at 50 and 36. Home teams are really struggling. They're currently at 40 and 48 as I record this over the last 7 days. And in the last 7 days, we've seen quite a few unders. 44 unders and 39 overs. If you're looking over the last 30 days, it has been a little bit of an underfest, as we've seen 194 unders and 180 overs, so that's right around 52% of the time the total is going under that according to covers. And favorites in this time span, not necessarily doing so great, hitting at about a 57.2% clip, 226 and 169. Home teams 191 and 211. They're winning 47.5% of the time. That is just absolutely insane. But if you're looking at the season to date, home teams winning more like 53.7% of games, 1,217 wins, 1,050 losses. Favorites in this time span, hitting at a rate of 59.3% overall for the year, 1331 and 913. And if you're looking at the under, it's had a little bit of a lead on overs at 1,085 unders, 1,069 overs. So about 50.4% of games overall this year have gone under. So that's what we're all noticing in Major League Baseball, and that's what we wound up seeing on Wednesday. Now let's turn the page forward and let's take a look at these postseason races with our good friend Danny Vietti of CBS Sports, along with the Wake Rake Podcast. I know that he's out there in California. He's got some thoughts on the San Diego Padres. We're going to be talking about how the St. Louis Cardinals just continue to win games as well. That's on the other side, right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
Greg is calling in a pinch hitter from the Overtime Network hotline.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Always great to have this guest aboard, as he does terrific work over there with CBS Sports' MLB coverage. He also does a podcast of his own, the Wake Rake Podcast. That is with Danny Vietti, who's joining me right now, along with former MLB player Will Middlebrooks. You're able to follow them on Twitter at Wake and Rake Pod, and you're able to find that podcast wherever you get this fine podcast. And to be able to follow Danny on Twitter, that is at his name, Danny Vietti, and his last name is spelled Vietti. And Danny, it is always great to have you aboard. Thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate you having me on, Greg. It's always great to be here.
Always great to have you aboard. One thing that is not great, though, is the pitchers that the Padres are throwing out there right now. I just still am in complete amazement that last week we saw a critical series between they and the St. Louis Cardinals, and two of the pitchers that they wound up starting in those games was Vince Velasquez along with Jake Arrieta. I don't know what you made out of the San Diego Padres, but the way that I take a look at it right now, they're a couple games out of that second wild card spot in the Cardinals, and I just think that this team is toast at this point, and I really think that it comes back to what we were talking about towards the beginning of the year. The Padres wound up going to their bullpen very early and often in a lot of those early season games, not letting their starting pitchers go very deep, and that has really cost them here in the back half with all the injuries that they've sustained.
They've fallen far short of expectations. You go into St. Louis, I hate to call it a must-win series with a couple weeks left in the season, but it really was. When you look at the wild card standings, I mean, this is a must-win situation. And instead of having your best starters going out there, you unfortunately are having two guys in Jake Arrieta and Vince Velasquez who were both sitting on their couch as of a month ago. So you have a must-win series and you have two guys that, I mean, essentially these players are shaking hands, introducing themselves whenever they have a mound visit because they don't really know who's on the mound. The wheels have just completely fallen off for San Diego. And I really don't want to blame it on the pitching staff because the pitching staff held this team together for so much of the season. Early on, it was their starting rotation. And in their bullpen led Major League Baseball and are still up there in the upper echelon in innings pitched. Unfortunately, that bullpen has been so taxed as the season has gone on that they really haven't been able to sustain that. I mean, Emilio Pagan has really struggled here in the second half. Losing Drew Pomeranz has been a brutal, brutal loss for this team. So they just haven't been able to sustain, but it's really been the offense. And I was kind of keying in on one certain stat that I thought really explained a lot of their struggles at the plate. And it's been the mere fact that they haven't been able to get their leadoff hitter on base. And that's surprising when you consider Fernando Tatis Jr. often bats leadoff. But I'm not just talking about a leadoff hitter in the first inning. I'm talking about a leadoff hitter every single inning. And their leadoff hitters coming into last weekend, they were hitting 229. That's last in the National League. So they're not getting any rallies started to start off an inning. They're getting rallies started with 1 out and 2 out. But it's really hard to get anything going offensively when you're constantly having 1 out and 2 outs whenever you have your rallies started. So the team has just fallen way short of expectations, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point to see how much of a disappointment it is. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of changes coming to San Diego this offseason.
And what's really been stunning about the San Diego Padres, and I think that you pointed it out really well, is we do have Danny Vietti of CBS Sports joining me on the podcast, is that ever since the beginning of the month of August, the Padres are dead last in the National League when it comes to runs per game. And I'm right there with you. I'm very surprised because not even just Fernando Tatis Jr. They wound up bringing in Adam Frazier via trade, who was leading the National League in hits prior to that transaction. you wind up having Manny Machado out there in the fold. Got a lot of guys that they do a good job of being able to draw some walks. So I've really been befuddled by that because I did figure that the pitching was going to dry up a little bit going into August. They had the number one bullpen ERA in all of baseball. You figured that was going to sink back a little bit due to the usage, but the fact that they haven't been able to generate runs to me is almost just as shocking as the pitching.
Just inconsistent baseball throughout that lineup. Tommy Pham had a little bit of a hot streak there for a while. He was actually one of the better leadoff hitters in baseball there for about a month period, but that eventually fell off. Will Myers has been really up and down all season, kind of a microcosm of his tenure in San Diego. Trent Grisham has fallen off the table ever since the All-Star break. He dealt with injuries early on. He's still playing a good center field defensively, but with the bat, he looks completely lost. Just up and down that lineup has irritated me along the way is a lot of fans are blaming it on Eric Hosmer. And I'm not over here saying Eric Hosmer has been the answer or the key to their success, because I think he'd be the first to tell you he hasn't had the best of seasons, especially defensively. But a guy that's hitting 270 with nearly 67 RBIs, I don't think he's the problem here. I think it's really been up and down 1 through 9. They just haven't had that consistency. And I mentioned that they haven't been able to get their leadoff hitter on. They've had injuries, but a lot of people are blaming Eric Hosmer. And again, I'm not saying he's the key ingredient to their success. I'm not saying he's the key ingredient to their downfall, but I don't think he's the center issue to this team. Although I have a feeling his days in San Diego are going to be numbered, just considering his contract, amount of money that he was making, and the expectations that were placed upon him when you do sign that contract. He's going to be definitely included in some of those changes coming here in the offseason.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the San Diego Padres, as I'm pretty sure they're booking tee times for right now for about 2 weeks from now, as we do have Danny Vietti of CBS Sports and the Wake Rake Podcast joining me on the podcast. And with the Padres seemingly knocking themselves out of the wild card hunt, right now you're looking at the Cincinnati Reds and the St. Louis Cardinals being the two teams really competing for that number 2 wild card spot. And I do think that it's going to be intriguing to see what we get down the stretch, because with the Reds, they do have a series coming up early next week against the White Sox, but they get the Washington Nationals for a 4-game set coming up this week, and then you wind up ending the season with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who surprisingly the Reds have had a little bit of trouble with. Meanwhile, the St. Louis Cardinals have quite a few games with the Milwaukee Brewers. They obviously have the Cubs as well, and the Cardinals do have a little bit of a lead when it comes to this wild card chase. But when you take a look at it, which team do you ultimately think is going to be able to get the wild card? Because I think that this is going to be a good race, and certainly the Reds schedule does help them out, but I love the way that the Cardinals are playing right now.
Yeah, and more good news out in St. Louis, too, is Jack Flaherty is throwing baseballs again, and there's a lot of optimism, too. It's been reported that he was throwing baseballs as of today, and they said he looked good. So if you can get Jack Flaherty, your ace, back at the right time, right spot, I mean, that could be a huge lift to St. Louis. If you look at St. Louis's rotation, I think it would be pretty incredible. And just comparing them to San Diego, if they're able to get themselves into the playoffs and San Diego not, San Diego is known as being this young, bat flipping, swaggy team, whereas St. Louis, they're a little bit more of an older bunch. They have one of the oldest rosters in Major League Baseball. They are more traditional. You don't see them being really the centerpiece of swag in Major League Baseball. You look at their rotation, Adam Wainwright has filled the void in their rotation after he was riddled with injuries at 40 years old, and he's been phenomenal. He has the lowest opponent batting average of his career at 40 years old. That's pretty impressive when you consider his resume and what he's been able to accomplish at this point in his career. And then you look at the rest of their rotation. I mean, John Lester, Jay Happ, these are all guys that are upper 30s, approaching 40 years old. And really the only guy in that rotation, they've had a rookie that have been throwing some innings for him. But other than that, these guys are upper 30s, 40 years old. That's their rotation. Whereas you look at San Diego and you think these young guns are going to be coming for the spot. No, it's been St. Louis, who's really just going to lull you to sleep. They're just a traditional ball club, a ball club that is really having a more impressive lineup than a lot of people expected, but they're just going to lull you to sleep. They're a really good organization. They're always going to win ball games. They're always going to find their way, and they're just more consistent, especially when you compare it to young teams like Cincinnati, San Diego. So St. Louis is St. Louis. We should have known that they were going to be there toward the end. Maybe we forgot about them. Maybe we underestimated that organization just a little bit as the season went on.
I agree with you. And with the Cardinals, I just really sat there and laughed at the moves that they wanted making at the deadline for Jay Happ and John Lester. I thought, oh, these guys aren't going to be able to do anything. But John Lester, somehow, some way, 2 runs or fewer, given up in 5 out of his last 6 starts. Jay Happ has not necessarily been terrific, but at the same time, he's been a whole heck lot better than he was in Minnesota. So these two guys have given a really nice lift. And if you're looking for a lift in the American League, you've got a really good wild card race that's going on right now. Boston is right now in line for that first wild card spot. As we're doing this podcast, the Blue Jays lead the Yankees by half a game. This might wind up changing by the time this podcast winds up uploading. Then you've got the Oakland A's and the Seattle Mariners, who wound up playing a few games earlier this week. They are in contention, and both of these teams are going to be playing each other once again next week. And I just take a look at this race, and I think that it's really good. And I think that it's important to note what the Blue Jays currently have / do not have, as they've got George Springer back in the fold now. He, no doubt, when he's been healthy, has been massive for this Blue Jays team, but also Hyun-Jin Ryu has been dealing with injury as well. He was supposed to start on Wednesday. He is now, if I'm seeing this correctly, on the injured list. So looks like they would probably be having him back for the postseason, if at all, and he has been struggling as well. So I take a look at this entire race, and I think that these last 10 days or so are going to be very intriguing for this one.
Yeah, and Robbie Ray has been fantastic this year. Right now, I have him slotted in as my American League Cy Young. And there's a lot of people that might disagree with that. A lot of people are liking Garrett Cole, sure. But what Robbie Ray has been able to do is he's been able to take the hill every fifth day for them. And he's been their ace. And every time that they need a win, he's been out there and he's been the guy for them. And I think it's even more impressive when you consider the ballparks that he's been pitching in this year. Not to mention, they were on the road, if you want to call it on the road, for the first half of the season. They weren't in Rogers Center in Toronto until midway through the year. They were pitching at their spring training stadium in Florida, in Buffalo, New York, their AAA stadium. And these are two stadiums that are considered really small yards and really good hitting ballparks until they went over to Rogers Center, which is another ballpark that's considered a very good hitting ballpark. He's been phenomenal. Ever since the start of the season, Robbie Ray has been fantastic. And I have a pretty awesome stat that I kind of found is last year, he had more walks than he did all of this year. And he's pitched 3 times as many innings this year as he did all of last year. And he had more walks last year than he does this year, which is pretty incredible. When I look at this wild card race, Toronto, they're dangerous. I mean, that lineup 1 through 9, they might be the most dangerous, most lethal lineup in the American League. When you look at it 1 through 9, I mean, you just have no rest at all. Seattle, I thought, really hurt their playoff chances. I thought it was a make or break type series. When they played Boston in Seattle, they weren't able to win that series. They lost 2 out of 3. Regardless, I think Seattle's had a really promising year, and I think their future's looking really bright. Jared Kelenic is looking much better at the dish. He's displaying his power recently. The Yankees are tough. As I kind of transition from Seattle to New York, the Yankees are so inconsistent. They can put 10 runs on the board one game and they'll get shut out the next. Their lineup obviously is very up and down. They're very powerful, very dangerous, but when they're down and they're very, very beatable. So I think Toronto is probably the sneakiest team of the bunch, and I think really the most dangerous team at this point in the year, although their pitching depth isn't quite as developed as Boston and New York's probably. But those 3 teams are going to go at it. I mean, you're looking at the strength of schedules. You're trying to figure out who's going to leapfrog one another. It's going to come right down to the wire. But I do think Toronto right now is the most dangerous team of that bunch.
I agree with you, and they've got the best run differential actually in that division as well, ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays, which I find to be something that's very intriguing. They just had a tough time pulling out close games in the early part of the season. They've been doing a much better job of that recently, as we do have Danny Vietti joining me on the podcast. And when I take a look at a team that I thought would never be here at this point of the season in the Seattle Mariners, I think that they are intriguing because they don't have a great team batting average. They're not a team that they launch a bunch of home runs. They don't even necessarily have great starting pitching, but the one thing that they have going for them above all these other teams that are fighting for one of those wild card spots is that they've really had one of the more consistent bullpens. Guys like Casey Sadler, Drew Steckenrider, even Eric Swanson. These guys have been able to get the job done, and it's why they've been so good in one-run games. So do I think that the Seattle Mariners are going to be able to get that second wild card spot? No, but at the same time, if you need a team to be able to win one-run games, and now we've gotten to the point of the year in which it's a very small sample size, the Seattle Mariners are that team that might be able to come through better than any of these others.
And the Mariners have been something special this year when you consider their clutch ability. And if you're not familiar with Fangraph's clutch formula, let me kind of dumb it down. But basically, it's high leverage situations, hitting with runners in scoring positions, 7th inning on or later, basically clutch situations. And they have a formula for it. And Seattle is number 1 in the league in that category in clutch performance. This is the amazing part. They have an 8.1 rating in the clutch. The next team in line in that clutch category, and this is according to Fangraphs, is Philadelphia at 2.85. Seattle has nearly 4 times as high of a clutch rating as any team in baseball. And That's pretty remarkable. So if you're looking at their run differential and you're thinking, like, how is Seattle doing this? They've been great in the clutch. And that's a really good characteristic to have as a young team. And if you're a young team looking to compete in future years, that's something you circle, and that's something to be positive and optimistic about. Because, again, you just mentioned it. Their batting average is nothing wow. It's not going to be eye-popping. Their OPS, their power numbers are very middle of the pack. But they've pitched well. You mentioned their bullpen. And that lineup has been incredibly clutch. So I think that's one of the biggest wow moments for me this year has been their clutch factor. Just that rating, that 8.10, 4 times as many as the next team. That's pretty incredible.
The Seattle Mariners clutch factor has been really incredible, but not as incredible as yours, Danny, because every time you join this podcast, you do come up clutch. You do a great job with everything that you do over there with CBS Sports. You also do the Wake Rake Podcast, which people are able to find wherever you get this fine podcast. And I know that you're hard at work taking a look at these pennant races. You're doing a great job of taking a look and getting set for the postseason. So let the good people know what you've all got going on right now and how people can follow along to you on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Greg. Yeah, we're coming down to the wire here, so we'll have plenty of content to give you. I'm working on a piece for CBSSports.com, and you can find that all on CBSSports.com. And then definitely follow us at Wake and Rake Pod. We'll have plenty of content coming down the pipeline as these playoff races heat up and the playoffs inch closer.
It's going to be a lot of fun to take a look at the last week and a half of baseball. We've got some great postseason races that are coming down to the wire, and I know that Danny is going to be following it every step of the way. So big thanks to Danny Vietti of CBS Sports and the Wake and Rake Podcast for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Thursday, and a little something you like to call Touch 'em All.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Always a pleasure to get Danny Vietti on the podcast. Does a great job over there with CBS Sports. Also does a great job with his own podcast, the Wake and Rake Podcast, which you're able to find wherever you get this podcast. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Thursday, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at gunit_81. As per usual, we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go National League games first, then the American League games. If we would have interleague games, they would be on the bottom, but we do not have any of those. Unfortunately, all the rainouts that we had yesterday, they're going to be made up on Monday, so we don't have to deal with any games that are coming onto the board, so that is a big relief. And what else is relieving is that we've got a great day of baseball, which starts with 9:51, 9:52 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers are going to be playing us the St. Louis Cardinals. Adam Wainwright is going to be going for the Cards. Adrian, don't call me Dookie Howser, is going to be on the bump for the Brewers. The Brewers are finding themselves in between -119 and -120 favorites. Even money to +110 is your price on the Cardinals. 8 is your total. Over is anywhere between -110 and -120. Under is anywhere between even and -110. I don't think that either team is really going to be getting past 4 runs in this spot, so I'm going to be taking a look at the under with Adrian Howser. Did wind up getting lit up in his last start, as he wound up giving up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned against the Chicago Cubs. But prior to that, pitched the first complete game of any Milwaukee Brewers pitcher on September 4th against the St. Louis Cardinals since Kyle Loesch in 2014, and the guy has been pretty darn good. This is a man that has given up 0 or 1 earned runs in now, I believe, something like 6 out of his last 8 starts, so he has been special. Now, he has had a couple hiccups the start against the Cubs, as I referenced, along with the Minnesota Twins, but take a look at what he's been able to do at home. A 2.93 ERA in 12 starts, a couple relief appearances as well. 7 home runs given up in 62 and 2/3 innings, with opponents saying a 221 off of him. But you take a look at Adam Wainwright, and he has been absolutely ridiculous, giving up 3 runs or fewer in now 13 of the team's last 15 starts. He had a little bit of a rough go of it on the road to begin the year, but the last time he wound up giving up more than we could even go 2 runs on the road was prior to the All-Star break. So this man has been lights out for this bunch. 16 wins. He has his lowest opponent's batting average of his career as of right now at 217. He's given up less than a home run per 9 innings. He has been amazing, and the St. Louis Louis Cardinals starting to figure it out with the bullpen as well. You've had Giovanni Gallegos do a good job of being able to close out games. Luis Garcia is giving you good innings along TJ McFarland. Then you take a look at the lineup and got a lot of guys sitting right in the neighborhood of, I would say, about a 255 to a 266 in Nolan Arenado, Yadier Molina, Dylan Carlson, Tommy Edman. Then you've got Paul Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill. Both of these guys sitting between a 280 to a 285, 28 home runs for O'Neill. Paul Goldschmidt, 26 bombs, but he really picked it up ever since the beginning of the month of July. Nolan Arenado has went deep 33 times. Umando Sosa hitting right around 270. Then the Milwaukee Brewers do have back Willie Adames to a little bit of an extent. He wound up missing the game yesterday, but he's been in and out of the fold. Still have quite a few guys hitting between, I would say, about a 269 to a 280 in Omar Narvaez, Colton Wong. You're able to throw in there Avisail Garcia. With Avisail Garcia left, Eduardo Escobar both entered into yesterday's game with 28 home runs. Christian Yelich has been in a little bit of a downer recently. Only 8 home runs hitting at 250, so that's been a little bit of an issue. But Lorenzo Cain, Jace Peterson, these guys are getting on base with the Brewers. You've got Devin Williams, Josh Hader in the back half of that bullpen. Brad Boxberger has been getting touched up a little bit. Jake Cousins starting to show a little bit of sign of regression, and I just trust in Wainwright a little bit more in this spot, which is why I wound up saying the St. Louis Cardinals as a very slight favorite. I want to be putting my money more on the experienced veteran in this spot, and a Cardinals team that they need every one of these wins to be able to make the postseason. So I was willing to make the Cardinals minus 103 favorite, so we're going to be taking the Cardinals, and I set this all at 7.7, so diving under as well. 953, 954 on the betting board. The LA Dodgers are going to be in the road face-off against the Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland is going to be going for the Rockies. Max Scherzer is going to be on the bump for the Dodgers. The Dodgers find themselves the biggest favorite on the betting board as of right now. Anywhere between minus 234 and minus 250. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Rockies, anywhere between plus $2 and plus 212 is your price. 10.5 is your total. Over and under, anywhere between minus 105, minus 115. I don't want to be betting on a whole lot of runs in this game because Max Scherzer has been absolutely amazing since coming over to the LA Dodgers. He has given up 2 runs or fewer in every one of his starts. He's made 9 starts and he's got a 0.78 ERA. His strikeouts to walk rate is 11.3. I mean, this guy's been absolutely ridiculous. Now, Coors Field is Coors Field, but I mean, heck, even Kyle Freeland has been able to do a good job at home. He wound up having a really rough ride as he wound up having a north of 9 ERA through his first 5 starts. Since then, he's given up really 3 runs or fewer in 11 out of his last 13 starts, which has been very good. Now, overall at home, he has given up 11 home runs in 47 innings, but a lot of those wound up coming early. He's been able to calm things out a little bit. Last home start was rough against the San Francisco Giants, but a lot of guys have been having rough starts against the San Francisco Giants, and when he's faced off against the LA Dodgers, he's given up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 3 starts against them, so that is something that is very good for this team. And the Colorado Rockies, they do such a better job at home than on the road with regards to being able to hit. They've got the best home batting average of any team out there in the league. CJ Cron, among his 27 home runs, 18 have come at home. You've got a guy like a Trevor Story, he's sitting nearly at 300 at home, sitting right around the Mendoza line of 200 on the road. Brendan Rodgers is sitting at 285 for you. Remy Altapia, more like a 275. Good to have him back. But then you take a look at the LA Dodgers, and you've got all these guys with at least 25 home runs. Max Muncy, Justin Turner down for what? Will Smith. And then you got Trey Turner down for what? Mookie Betts, Chris Taylor with between 20 and 22 home runs of their own. Now, they are going to be without Cody Bellinger, is currently on the injured list, but he wasn't providing a lot for this lineup either, so that is not necessarily going to be a big issue for this team. Then you take a look at the Dodgers, second best bullpen ERA in the big leagues. Now, I do think we might see a little bit of regression with guys like Phil Bickford, Alex Vesia, Justin Brule, guys like this. Even someone like a Corey Knebel might wind up sinking back a little bit, but these guys have been able to do the job. And for the Colorado Rockies, bullpen has been better at home than on the road. You've got Robert Stevenson doing some good work. Daniel Bard has some absolutely ridiculous splits. On the road, he's got an ERA that's hovering right around an 8.5. Meanwhile, it's a 3.28 at home, so these guys have been able to come through, but I mean, it's just really hard to bet against Max Scherzer at this point. And with this offense, I'm seeing the run line hovering between about a minus 150 to a minus 155. I was willing to take a shot here as long as it was below a minus 150. I made this a minus 153, so I'm going to take a shot here on that Dodgers run line. I set them more like a minus 220 on the money line, and when it comes to the total, set it at a 9.7, so diving under along with that Dodgers run line. 955, 956 on the betting board. Got the Atlanta Braves hitting the road face-off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Madison Bumgarner is going to be going for the D-backs. Charlie Morton is going to be going for the Bravos and the Braves. Anywhere between minus 180 and minus 190 favorites. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the D-backs, anywhere between plus 160 and plus 166 is your price. 8.5 is your total. Overs between minus 110 and minus 120. The unders anywhere between even and minus 110. And for Charlie Morton, he's been able to do his best work on the road. I'll get into that in a second, but you take a look at Madison Bumgarner, and he had a relatively solid start his last time out against the Houston Astros, but prior to that, had given up at least 4 runs in each of his previous 4 starts. Now, coming off the injured list, he actually looked really good as he wound up giving up 2 earned runs or fewer in each out of his first 7 starts since coming off the injured list, then wound up hitting a really rough patch, has given up now 11 home runs over the course of his last 9 starts as well, so that is something that is not so rosy. And then I was mentioning it with Charlie Morton. How about what he's been able to do on the road? 2.95 road ERA compared to a 4 ERA at home. He's given up 4 home runs at 82 and a third innings away from Atlanta, and opponents are getting a $1.82 off of him. That's a 2.29 when he's at home. And then you take a look at the Atlanta Braves and what they're able to back him up with. The fact that Matt Bum is giving up home runs, that is not good, because Ode Soler, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, along with Adam Duvall, all have at least 24 home runs so far this year. You take a look at Duvall, Albies, Riley, Freeman, all at least 29 home runs. It is insane. Ore Soler, since coming over to the Braves, hitting right around at 270. Freeman, along with Riley, both hitting right around at 300. Eddie Rosario has been able to give this team some good at-bats. Catcher spot has been a little bit rough, but then you take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. You don't have a single guy on this roster because they wound up trading away Eduardo Escobar with north of 12 home runs going into the game yesterday. Now, you've got a lot of guys with between 11 and 12. Pavin Smith, Carson Kelly, Josh Rojas, along with Dalton Varsho and Ketel Marte of Marte Parte. And with the Marte Parte, he's hitting right around at 330. Got a couple guys like David Peralta, Pavin Smith, Josh Rojas hitting between about a 260 to a 270, but it certainly has been rough for this offense. And then you just take a look at this bullpen, and it is not good. Luis Frias is someone that they're looking at for innings. Joe Manette typically has right around a 3.5 ERA. Noe Ramirez has been okay for the team, and you've got the ancient one in Tyler Clipper giving you some innings, but Brett Gaius has north of a 70 ERA. JB Wendelken hasn't been great for the team. Then you take a look at the Atlanta Braves, and the bullpen got off to a rough start to begin the year, but you've been getting some good innings recently out of guys like Luke Jackson. I like the way that Tyler Madzik has been able to rein it in a sub 2.5 ERA ever since the beginning of the month of July. Even someone like a Richard Rodriguez has been a good addition to this team. Going to be fascinating to see if you're going to be able to get the good Mad Bum or the bad Mad Bum, which is why I wound up saying the Braves as more like a minus 170 favorite on the money line, which means that we go to the run line, seeing that anywhere between a minus 110 to a minus 115. I was willing to lay up to a minus 115 in the spot, so I am going to take that Braves run line. With the Diamondbacks, I was willing to take right around a plus 170-ish, but I would rather take my chances on the run line of the Braves rather than the Diamondbacks getting an outright win because, well, the Diamondbacks have just stunk all year long, and this is the total I wound up setting at 80.2. So, taking the Braves on the run line and this total under 957, 958 is my New York Post play today. The San Francisco Giants hit the road to face off against the San Diego Padres. Yu Darvish going to be going for the Pods. Logan Webb is going to be on the bump for the Giants. To the surprise of me, the Giants are finding themselves as an underdog. I think you know where I'm going with the New York Post play today. Anywhere between even money and plus 105. Be involved with the Pods. Anywhere between minus 114 and minus 120. 8 is your total. Over and under. Anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. The San Francisco Giants are 17-1 in Logan Webb's last 18 starts. And here we find Logan Webb being between even money and a little bit of a plus price. What am I missing here? Yu Darvish has been absolutely terrible. Now, he pitched 7 scoreless innings against the St. Louis Cardinals in his last start, but prior to that, he had given up at least 4 runs in 8 of his last 11 starts. In that time, he had right around a 7.6 ERA. He had been giving up 15 home runs in that time span. Yu Darvish has not been good, and for Logan Webb, in this string of his last 18 starts, he's got right around a 2-ish ERA. He's done a good job of being able to keep down the deep ball, giving up 6 home runs in about 100 innings in this time span. He has been absolutely amazing, and he's backed up by a bullpen that is number 1 in the big leagues with regards to ERA right now. Though they did have to get used up a little bit because Scott Kazmir got the start yesterday, but Dominic Leone, Zach Liddell, these guys have been solid. Tony Watson, ever since coming over from the LA Angels, he's got a little bit more pep in his step, right around a 3-ish ERA. You've been able to get some good innings out of Jarlin Garcia. Then you take a look at the San Diego Padres. Going into the month of August, they had the number 1 bullpen ERA in the big leagues, but they've just been used up too much. You've had Mark Melancon get used up time and time again. Craig Stammen has been used for something like 84 innings. It's absolutely insane. Ross Detweiler is someone that they're now looking at for innings. And for the Padres, this team just doesn't have the clutch factor, as we were talking about Danny Vietti. Now, you do have a trio of guys with at least 20 home runs. Jake Cronenworth, Manny Machado, and then obviously the 39 home runs of Fernando Tatis Jr. All these guys hitting between a 268 and a 286. And got a lot of guys hitting right around like a 230 to a 240. Trent Grisham, Tommy Pham are a pair of those guys. Will Myers is hitting more like a 255, but you've had a lot of underachievement recently with the team. And then you take a look at the San Francisco Giants, and this team is just littered with guys that just know their role. You've got all these guys with between 18 and 26 home runs. Buster Posey, Lamonte Wade, Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford. You're able to throw in there Mike Yastrzemski. Evan Longoria would be in that fold, but he was injured, and he's only had 216 at-bats, 13 home runs at a 290 batting average in that time span. Chris Bryant has 25 home runs. He's hitting right around 275, so this is a San Francisco Giants team that they're lock-loaded, ready for bear. This is a Padres team that, going into the game yesterday, 10-25 in their last 35 games. They have faded, and they have faded significantly. Meanwhile, the Giants have been able to maintain. I set the Giants as a minus 144 favorite, so this should not come as a shock if you've been listening to this podcast. Giants on the money line is going to be the New York Post play of the day. Wound up setting the total at 8.3 because I think that Darvish is going to get lit up once again, so going over along with the Giants on the money line, which is the New York Post play of the day. 959, 960 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and they're going to be playing us to the Washington Nationals. Patrick Corbin is going to be going for the Nats. Luis Castillo is going to be on the bump for the Reds. Currently, DraftKings is showing the Reds as a minus 195 favorite, plus 165 on the Nats, and a total of 8 with the over at minus 115 and the under at minus 105. I think that we're going to see a little bit of a correction on this one. I personally want to make in the Reds minus 183. I'm willing to lay a little bit of a price on the run line, but it's going to be relatively even money there. And with this total 9 or lower, I'm going to be taking a look at the over 9.5 or higher. I'm going to be taking a look at the under. It is important to note that Luis Castillo throughout his career has north of a point better ERA at home than on the road, and that's really ranked true this year. 5.08 ERA on the road, 3.19 ERA at home, but you take a look at it, the team was 1-9 in his first 10 starts. He was so absolutely abysmal. Ever since those first 10 starts, right around a 2.9-ish ERA, and at home, 5 home runs given up in 93 innings. Been walking quite a few guys, right around 3.5-ish walks per 9 innings, but has been able to keep the deep ball out of the fold. Meanwhile, Patrick Corbin, he has given up the deep ball, 36 home runs in 159 innings so far this year, and it just gets worse whenever he goes on the road, as this is a man that has a 6.05 road ERA, but 18 homers given up in 74 and a third innings. Also has given up 18 bombs at home, but that's over the course of more like 84 and 2/3 innings. Opponents are getting 262 off of him on the road. His walks per 9 rate is hovering right around 3. He's backed up by a bullpen, which if you got a couple guys who are able to give you a little bit of something. Kyle Finnegan has been able to do a solid job. Ryan Harper has been good, and the good news is Wander, I swear this guy sucks, is currently on the injured list, so that's actually an upgrade for the Washington Nationals. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Reds, and you've been able to get something out of Luis Cessa. Michael Lorenzen has been failing this team a little bit, and Brad Brock has just been a hot mess for them, but you do take a look at this Washington Nationals lineup, and got a pair of guys that are taking you deep. Juan Soto along Josh Bell, both have 27 home runs, and for Soto, right around a 460 on base. It is absolutely insane. Meanwhile, you take a look at Luis Garcia, Keibert Ruiz, along with Josh Bell. These guys have been solid, hitting between about a 240 to a 255. Lane Thomas, ever since coming over from the St. Louis Cardinals, hitting right around 300, and Alcides Escobar is hitting a 285. But then you take a look at the Cincinnati Reds, and no question, this is a team that's a little bit banged up. Jesse Winker, Taylor Naquin, both dealing with injuries, but you do have quite a few guys in the middle that are still able to take you deep, and Eugenio Suarez, Joey Votto, along with Nick Castellanos, all at least 27 home runs for Votto. Castellanos, you're able to throw in there Jonathan India, Max Schrock, all between 355 and 378 on base percentages. Tucker Barnard is hitting at 260 at the catcher spot. Whenever you've had Tyler Stevenson out there, he's a little bit banged up. He's been solid as well, so I do take a look at the spot. I'm willing to lay a pretty hefty price with the Reds just because the Nats, well, they sold off a lot of pieces, and the pitching in general has not been great, especially with Corbin, so setting the Reds right around a minus 183 favorite. Willing to lay a little bit of a price on the run line, and like I said, 9 or lower, going to be taking a look at the over 9.5 or higher to the under 961, 962 on the betting board. You've got the Philadelphia Phillies playing those to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Connor Overton walks the plank for the Buccos. Meanwhile, Aaron Supernola takes a bump for the Phillies. Phillies find themselves as big favorites, right around the same price as the Dodgers, anywhere between minus 235 and minus 250. Plus price on the Buccos between plus $2 and plus 213. 8.5 is your total. Overs between minus 110 and minus 115. Unders between minus 105 and minus 110 for the Pirates. It certainly has been a rough year for them, to say the least. Connor Overton wound up being able to give the team a start against the Cincinnati Reds earlier in the year, won 3 scoreless innings, and he's got a 0 ERA over the course of 11 2/3 innings. So, well, in a small sample size, he's been relatively effective, but you've got to feel like he's going to be like an opener du jour, and then from there, you wind up going with someone like a Cody Ponce, who has a bulk guy, has a 6.90 ERA. Nick Mears, who has been terrible out of the bullpen. Chad Kuhl, and his 5 ERA. So, you got a lot of distrust there. Meanwhile, with Aaron Supernola, he has not been so super on the road. At home, he's been a little bit shaky as well, but still, 3.45 ERA in Philadelphia. He's given up right around 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 are right around 1.4 is insane, and opponents are getting 221 off of him. So at home, he has looked very solid. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, this is a bunch in which they didn't necessarily get as many runs generated as you'd expect against the Baltimore Orioles in the first couple of games of their series, but you still got Bryce Harper, who's got 17 home runs ever since the beginning of the month of August. He's hitting a 313. Gene Segura hitting right in the neighborhood about a 300. You need a little bit more out of Didi Gregorius, Andrew McCutchen, Brad Miller. All these guys are hitting a 230 or lower, but for McCutchen, 330 on base, 24 home runs. Odubel Herrera, along JT Realmuto, hitting between about a 250 and a 265 throw in there. Freddie Galvis as well. And for the Phillies, the bullpen has actually been able to shape up a little bit. They've just been better at pitching at home than they have been on the road. Archie Bradley has certainly had his ups and his downs, but Ian Kennedy, after he had a really rough start to begin his Philadelphia Phillies career, has been good in his last couple appearances. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of Jose Alvarado as well. And then you take a look at the flip side for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you're just going to be using the wholesale approach. And this is a bunch in which you've got one guy that's able to do a good job of being able to supply the boom, and Brian Reynolds. He's got 24 home runs, hitting right around 295. And Yoshi Satsugo, ever since he's come over, has actually been very good for this team. He's got 7 homers over the course of something like 32 games. He has been able to provide right around a 315 batting average, make that 8 home runs, as he is pretty much tied for the most home runs along with Jacob Stallings of any player that is currently active, because Gregory Polanco, I believe, is currently on the injured list, along with Brian Reynolds, who obviously leads the way. And then you just got a lot of guys on this bunch that is hitting a 220 or lower. You're able to throw in there someone like a Cole Tucker, Phillip Evans, Sky Tom, Hoy Park, list goes on and on of guys. They're just not holding up their end of the bargain. So this is a spot in which I'll probably be taking a look at a run line in the spot. If you're looking at the Phillies run line, going to be laying anywhere between a minus 117 to a minus 125. I was willing to lay up to a minus 137. I made this money line more like a minus 235, so I'd rather reduce the juice in this spot. I also set this all at an 8.4 because I just don't think that the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to generate any offense whatsoever. So I'm going to be taking the Phillies on the run line to go along with this total under. We've got a double dip here, so we're just going to do both of these games together. 963, 964, and 967, 968. Chicago White Sox hit the road face-off against the Cleveland Indians. ESPN has a set matchup for game one. The betting board has to be determined on really both of these games, so we've got no numbers on either. But in game one, right now, according to ESPN, it is Reynaldo Lopez going for the White Sox and Aaron Savali on the bump for the Cleveland Indians. Then in game two, it is the good old man of mystery for the White Sox. Was seeing Lance Lynn a little bit earlier. I doubt we wind up getting him. And Zach Plesac, who's going to be going for the Cleveland Indians. When it comes to game one of this double dip, I wound up saying the White Sox with Mr. Lopez is right around a minus 120-ish favorite. I wound up making this total a 7.1, so a 7 or lower. I'm going to be taking a look at the over, 7.5 or higher. I'm going to be taking a look at the under. You take a look at this Cleveland Indians bunch, and it does help that they wound up getting a rain out yesterday, and the White Sox did as well. So both of these bullpens are going to be fresh. You're going to be seeing a lot of Ryan Tepera. You're probably going to be seeing Craig Kimbrell, Liam Hendricks for the White Sox in some form or fashion in these two games. And for the Indians, you've got to figure that Emmanuel Clase is going to be on call for them. But the big thing with the Indians is that they've been in the bottom 10 with regards to bullpen ERA over the last 30 days because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries. James Karinchak is currently out of the fold. Nick Sandlin is currently on the injured list. I believe that they're dealing with Blake Parker being in and out as well. He might be available for this one, which should be able to help them out a tad. But you just take a look at Aaron Savali, and he's just trying to get ramped back up after he wound up spending quite a bit of time on the injured list. In his 3 starts since coming back, it's been a mixed bag. 4 2/3 innings, giving up a run against the Minnesota Twins. Gave up 7 runs in 3 innings against the Milwaukee Brewers. He's coming off of 6 scoreless against the up and down New York Yankees. Never really been much of a swing and miss guy. His strikeouts per 9 rate so far this year is hovering right around 7, but he's been able to do a good job of being able to keep the deep ball down. And then you take a look at Mr. Lopez, and things have been starting to dry up on him a little bit as well. He's given up at least 3 runs in each out of his last 3 starts after he had like a sub-2 ERA to begin the year. He was very good in small doses. When he's been used as an actual starter, he's given up at least 3 runs in over half of his starts. So that is something that you do take a look at. And then what you also take a look at with the White Sox is the fact that this is a team that they don't necessarily have a bunch of bombers, but they just do a great job of getting on base. Tim Anderson, north of a 300 batting average, and Luis Robert hitting right around 350 is amazing. Eloy Jimenez, Leury Garcia, Yoel Moncada, Jose Abreu, along with Adam Engel, lying between a 248 and a 264 with Mr. Abreu. His 113 RBI, second in the big leagues. He had a double-digit amount of homers in the month of August. Yoel Moncada, a 377 on base. You've even had Gavin Sheets be able to give you a little bit of something. And then with the Cleveland Indians, 2 mashers for this team. Franmil Reyes along with Jose Ramirez. Both of these guys north of 30 home runs. In the case of Mr. Jose Ramirez, he's been able to go deep 35 times. Both of these guys are hitting between, I would say, about a 255 to 265. And then you've got Hero Ramirez, Miles Straw, both hitting between about a 269 to a 277 in the case of Straw in his time with the Cleveland Indians. Amid Rosario has been a little bit banged up, so I haven't been able to rely upon him. Then you've got a lot of guys like an Ernie Clement, a Bradley Zimmer, Yu Chang, these guys hitting between about a 220 to a 230, so that is no doubt going to be a little bit of an issue. So in White Sox versus Indians game 1 with a Lopez versus Savali, I'm going to be setting the White Sox as a minus 123 favorite, and like I said, 7 or lower, going to be taking a look at the over, 7.5 or higher to the under. And then in game 2, you got to figure that the Indians are probably going to be a slight underdog just with the way that Zach Plesac has pitched. He has given up at least 3 runs in each out of his last 3 starts, has actually been able to do a better job of being able to keep down the deep ball. He's given up just 2 home runs over the course of his last 4 starts, but overall for the year, he's given up about a home run and a half per 9 innings. You take a look at what he's been able to do at home so far this year, and it certainly has been a little bit better than on the road, but not by much. 4.16 home ERA, 4.98 road ERA, giving up 10 bombs in 62 and 2/3 innings at home, 12 home runs in 68 and 2/3 on the road, and opponents starting at 236 off of him. And give him credit, he's a guy that's not going to put you on cheaply, right around 2 walks per 9 innings, but you got to figure that if the White Sox go with a whole bunch of different guys, maybe you wind up throwing out there a Michael Kopech for a couple innings, and then you wind up getting into guys like Jose Ruiz and company, would probably be making the White Sox a very similar line, right around like a minus 120-ish with like a 7 or lower to the over as well. But jump back in the morning, my Twitter feed at Jarens41, because we need to know the plan of attack for the White Sox before giving you anything set there. 965, 966 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners are going to be in the road to face off against the Oakland A's. Chris Bassett as the Oak line and sinker for the A's. Meanwhile, Yusei Kikuchi is going to be on the bump for the Mariners. Mariners are finding themselves anywhere between plus 130 and plus 135 underdogs. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the A's, anywhere between minus 141 and minus 150 is your price. 8.5 is your total. Overs anywhere between minus 110 and minus 120. Unders anywhere between even and minus 110. For Mr. Kikuchi, he's been relatively equal when it comes to home and road starts, but he has just had his almighty struggles recently. You take a look at Yusei Kikuchi, and things are starting to dry up on him a little bit. He has out given up at least 3 runs in now 5 out of his last 7 starts, so that's not what you want to be finding with this gentleman, and it's not really been the deep ball either. He has given up a combined 8 home runs over the course of his last 9 starts, which is certainly not great, but at the same time, he was actually giving up more home runs towards the beginning part of the year. It's just the fact that in general, guys are starting to hit him up. He's got an opponent's batting average of a 253 on the road. His walks per 9 rate, that hovers right in the neighborhood of about 3.3 overall as well, and he's given up 16 home runs in 77 innings, to my point a little bit earlier about him getting touched up earlier in the year on the road. But then you take a look at Chris Bassett, and what we're going to be able to get out of him is anyone's guess, because he's going to be making his first start since he wound up taking a line drive to the face on Tuesday, August 17th, so it's been a month since he wound up making his start. But Bassett has been very solid all year long, a guy that's been able to give you 6+ innings pretty much on the regular at home, a 2.55 ERA in 10 starts. He's given up 6 home runs in 67 innings. His walks per 9 rate at home is right around a 1.6. Opponents are hitting at 200 off of him, so he has been rock solid. Then you take a look at the Seattle Mariners. What's not rock solid is the fact that you don't have a lot of guys getting on base for this team, as you do have a pair of guys that entered into yesterday with 34 home runs, Mitch Haniger, Kyle Seager, but then you take a look at Seager, you're able to throw in there Ore Mamaloe, Sherrick Kelnick, Dylan Moore, Tom Murphy, Cal Raleigh, list goes on and on of guys that are hitting a 220 or lower, Jake Bowers, and then you got JP Crawford hitting a 270, Ty France hitting more like a 290, so got a couple guys that have been able to do a solid job, in Abraham Toro ever since coming over from the Astros hitting north of a 275, but then got a whole bunch of guys on the Oakland A's with at least a 350 on base. Mark Canha, you're able to throw in there Josh Harrison, Starling Marte, of the Marte Parte, Matt Olson as well, and then Matt Chapman, only hitting about a 220 for the year, but ever since the beginning of the month of August, he's been able to supply 12 home runs. His on base in that time span been right around a 355. Tony Kemp for the year has right around a 360 on base as well. Sean Murphy along with Seth Brown, Jed Lowry, all between 14 and 17 home runs so far this year as well, and Starling Marte towards the top of the league when it comes to stolen bases. The big thing for the Oakland A's, though, is that their bullpen over the last 30 days has been in the bottom 7 of the big leagues with regards to ERA, hovering right around 5, as you've seen a couple guys like a Lou Trevino and Sergio Romo really let this team down. Yasmero Petit has been a little bit up and down. Sam Ball has actually been halfway decent for this team, so I give him some credit. Andrew Chafin has been relatively consistent. And then you take a look at the Seattle Mariners, and you've seen a little bit of regression with this bullpen, but Paul Sewell, Casey Sadler, Drew Steckenrider, Eric Swanson, these guys have been able to do a solid job, but Yusei Kikuchi getting lit up is something that really does have me putting out there some caution. I do think that you're going to see Mr. Bassett give you a good start. I wound up setting the money line of the A's is right around a minus 149. If you're looking at the run line, finding that right in the neighborhood about a plus 125. I needed more like a plus 130 to be able to take a shot, so I'm going to play it safe on that minus 141 money line I'm seeing with the A's. I'm going to wind up taking that, and when it comes to the total, set it at a 9.2. So going over, and I'm going to be going with with the Oakland A's on the money line. 967, 968 was a part of the Indians versus White Sox double dip, so we move on to 969, 970 on the betting board. The Walker Texas Rangers hit the road to face off against the Baltimore Orioles. For the Orioles, Zach Lawther is currently the listed starter on ESPN. To be determined is listed up on the betting board, so we've got no numbers on this one. Meanwhile, Glenn Otto is going to be going for the Rangers. If we get Mr. Otto against Lawther, I'm going to be saying the Texas Rangers as a minus 140 favorite. 9 or lower going to be taking a look at the over. 9.5 or higher to the under. The Texas Rangers have been just absolutely terrible on offense. Going into yesterday, they had scored 3 runs or fewer in 7 straight games. I don't know how that is possible. They have scored the fewest runs per game of any team ever since the All-Star break. You do have Adolis Garcia, who's been able to give you 30 home runs so far this year, and for the Rangers, they've actually gotten a couple guys back healthy. You got Isaiah Kiner-Falefa along with Andy Ibanez. You're able to throw in your Willie Calhoun, all in between about a 260 to a 275. Caught quite a few guys that they need to pick it up. DJ Turn It Up Peters, Brock Holt. You've got so many other guys that have been trying to play DH for this team that have been hitting below a 215. But, I mean, you've been able to get a little bit of something out of Yoni Hernandez as well, hitting like a 240. Nate Lowe hitting a 260 as well. So, got a little bit of something going on there. I will say, for the Texas Rangers, the bullpen has been relatively soft for the team. Joe Barlow, a sub-2 ERA so far this year. Brett Martin, Spencer Penn. These guys have been able to give you some good innings. And you take a look at Spencer Penn and what he's been able to do over the last 15 days. He's got like a $1.42 ERA, so give him a little bit of credit there. Then you take a look at the Baltimore Orioles, and with Mr. Lawther, he wound up making one good start against the Kansas City Royals, giving up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. Ever since then, 10 runs given up in 5 1/3 innings, and he was a part of a 22-7 loss against the Toronto Blue Jays. Just laughably bad. He's a man that is giving up right around 5 walks for 9 innings. His home runs per 9 rate is well north of 2, and he's backed up by a bullpen that is complete and utter poop. Cole Sulzer has been able to give you a little bit of something, and I will say, I do think that Tyler Wells has some decent stuff, but man, when you're relying upon guys like Connor Green, Tom Eshelman, Fernando Abad, Mike Bowman, these guys are just not good, but I will give the Baltimore Orioles this. You do have a couple guys that are supplying some offense for you. Ryan Mountcastle along Cedric Mullins. Both of these guys have been able to give you right around 30 home runs. With Mullins, he's hitting above a 300. And then you take a look at Ryan Mountcastle, Austin the Says kid, Trey Boom Boom Mancini. You're able to throw in there Anthony Santander, Pedro Severino, Richie Martin. All these guys are in between about a 240 to a 260. But then you've got Domingo Leyba, Pat Valleca, Ryan McKenna, Austin Wins, DJ Stewart, Kelvin Gutierrez, all in at 210 or lower. So that really does wind up hurting you. And for Glenn Otto, he wound up giving a good couple starts for the Texas Rangers. Now he's got right around a 9 ERA after giving up 15 runs in his last 2 starts, a combined 6 2/3 innings. So they were against the Houston Astros and the Oakland A's, so that makes it a little bit more understandable. But man, you've got a really poopy matchup here. I set the Rangers as a minus 140 favorite, despite the fact that they've been really terrible on the road. And like I said, with this total, you got a pair of bad offenses, 9 or lower. Going to be taking a look at the over, 9.5 or higher to the under. 971, 972 on the betting board. A little bit more of a competitive matchup here, as you've got the Toronto Blue Jays hitting the road face off against the Minnesota Twins. Michael Pineda hopes to not be Michael Pineda for the Twins. Meanwhile, Steven Matz is going to be on the bump for the Blue Jays. The Jays are finding themselves anywhere between minus 144 and minus 150 favorites. Meanwhile, with the Twins, between plus 130 and plus 135 is your price. 9.5 is your total. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. For Pineda, he's been relatively consistent over the last few years. Has given up the deep ball a little bit more this year. Given up right around 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but his walks per 9 rate hovers right around a 1.8-ish. You take a look at what Michael Pineda has been able to do in Minnesota so far this year. Actually, a little bit worse than on the road. 394 home ERA, 341 road ERA. Big thing is he's given up 12 home runs in 61 2/3 innings at home, but now it is the middle of September, so it's getting a little bit cooler out there in Minnesota. Got to figure that those deep balls are going to be going down. Meanwhile, for Steven Matz, he has been surprisingly good for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, he did wind up having a little bit of a clunker recently against the Baltimore Orioles, where he wound up giving up 5 runs, but this is a man that has now given up 2 runs or fewer, and you take a look at it, his last 13 starts in 11 of them. So that is very good for him. He's been giving up right around 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. He's kept things in line with the command right around 2.5 walks per 9 innings. So that has been absolutely superb. And even though the team has been moving around from place to place to place, he's been able to maintain quite a bit of consistency on the road with a 368 road ERA compared to a 4.05 at home. And then you take a look at the Blue Jays, and obviously they're going to be backing them up with a really good lineup as Vlad Guerrero Jr. currently going for that triple crown. He and Marcus Semien both have given you 40 home runs, with Vlad right around a 325 batting average. George Springer, ever since coming off the injured list in this most recent stint, has not necessarily been too terrific recently, but you still got a guy in Lourdes Gurriel who's hitting for like 9 home runs and like a 340 over the last 3 days. He has been amazing for the team. Teoscar Hernandez, Bo Bichette, both hitting above a 290, with Bichette 26 home runs, Teoscar Hernandez 29 of them. Then you take a look at the flip side for the Minnesota Twins, and you do have quite a few guys that they do need to pick it up with the batting average, but they've been able to find a couple nice pieces with this team. Josh Donaldson hitting right around 250. He's been able to go deep 24 times. You've got Mr. Ori Polanco with north of 30 home runs. He's been able to hit right in the neighborhood of a 280. Luis Ariz is in that fold as well. Byron Buxton, since coming out the injured list, has been brutal, but then you got Ben Roadfit, Brent Rooker, Max Kepler, and Andrelton Simmons, Ryan Jeffers, Miguel Sano, all in at 225 or lower. But I will say this, for Miguel Sano, ever since the beginning of the month of July, has right in the neighborhood of about a 330-ish on base. He's got 29 home runs so far this year, and with the Minnesota Twins, bullpen has been very shaky to say the least. Jorge Alcala, Alex Calme, not necessarily been very trustworthy. Danny Colombe, you take a look at what he's done over the last 3 days. He's got right around a 4.50 ERA. You've been able to get some good innings out of Luke Farrell along with Ralph Garza, and then you take a look at what you're able to get out of the Blue Jays. Adam Simber has been able to do a very solid job. Taylor Saucedo, not necessarily a guy you want to be trusting it, but Tim Massa over the last 3 days, right around a 2-ish ERA. Trevor Richards, Jordan Romano, these guys have been relatively solid as well. So I do take a look at the spot. I was willing to lay up to about a minus 142 on the money line with the Blue Jays, but if you take a look at this run line, you're only finding it right around even money-ish. So this is a spot in which I'm going to wind up taking a run and a half with the Minnesota Twins. I was willing to lay up to a minus 125 on that. I'm seeing a minus 115. It's not something that I normally do, but I think that this is going to come down to a one-run game. So I'm going to wind up taking a run and a half with the Minnesota Twins. And in this spot, I set this total at 8.8 because I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. So going under along with the Twins with the plus 1.5 run line. And we wrap things up with 973, 974 on the betting board. The LA Angels are going to be playing us to the Houston Astros. Lance McCullers Jr. is going to be going for the Astros. Alex Cobb is going to be going for the Angels. Angels are finding themselves anywhere between plus 165 and plus 170 underdogs. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Stros, anywhere between minus 184 and minus 195. 9 is your total. Unders anywhere between minus 110 and minus 115. Overs anywhere between minus 110 and minus 105 for McCullers Jr. Going into the season, he had a career ERA nearly 2 points better at home than he had on the road. This year, it's been the absolute opposite. On the road, at 2.53 ERA, a 3.54 at home. 7-1 in his 11 road starts, giving up 4 home runs in 64 innings, and opponents are at 207 off of him when he's on the road. Now, I will say, his walks per 9 rate hovers right around a 4.5, but he certainly has been able to do the job for the team. Meanwhile, you take a look at Alex Cobb, and his fielding independent is nearly a point better than his 3.59 ERA. He has actually been very good, and you take a look at him at home, 2.30 ERA compared to a 4.99 at home. He has given up 3 home runs so far this year over the span of 82 and 2/3 innings, and opponents are a $1.92 off of him when he's at home. At home, his walks per 9 rate is right around a 2.8-ish as well, so he certainly has been able to do the job. Problem is, the Angels are right now scoring right around 3.2 runs per game in the month of September, and the second fewest runs per game ever since the All-Star break, as Shohei Ohtani has certainly seen a little bit of regression with his offense sitting right around the Mendoza line ever since July 28th. He still does have 45 home runs. Jared Walsh, only 5 home runs since the All-Star break. He, Phil Gosselin, you're able to throw in their max sassy, Brandon Marsh, only between about a 251 to a 270, but then you've got guys like Luis Renifo, Kie Wong, along with Mr. Jose Roa sitting at 225 or lower. And then for the Houston Astros, you've got the MASH crew, as you've got Kyle Tucker, Carlos Correa, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve. All these 24 home runs, all hitting at least a 275 for this bunch. Michael Brantley has been out of the fold due to injury, so you wind up calling up Jose Sirius, hitting like a 400 for this team. Jazz McCormick, 250 batting average, 13 home runs. Jake Myers, he's been able to do a solid job, hitting right around 270 as well. Yoli Gurriel is hitting a 320. You've been able to get some good work out of Elemendi Diaz as well. Then you take a look at this Astros bullpen, and Kendall Graveman has a sub-2 ERA. You've been able to get a whole lot of something out of Ryan Presley, right around 225 ERA there. You've been utilizing Christian Javier in sort of that super reliever role. Josh James has not necessarily been good for the team, but you're probably not going to be looking at him. And then for the LA Angels, you've got Rossiel Iglesias, who does a good job as a closer. I don't think that there's going to be a closing opportunity here, though, as you've got Steve Cishek giving you a little bit of something, but then you got guys like Jose Marte, Oliver Ortega, Jose Quijada, whole bunch of guys that you don't trust in this bullpen. If you're taking a look at the run line of the Houston Astros, you're finding that anywhere between a minus 118 to a minus 120. I was willing to lay up to about a minus 124-ish in this spot, so I'm going to be taking a look at the run line of the Houston Astros. Also wound up saying the total at 8.8 because I do like the way that Cobb has been pitching recently, so going to be going under along with that Astros run line. And that will wrap things up for the Baseball Betting Podcast on this Thursday. A big thanks to Danny Vietti of CBS Sports and the Wake Rake Podcast for joining me in the last segment. If you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, you're able to subscribe wherever you hear podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you got a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, got one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM. Me doesn't matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to find whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Going to be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.